Falcha, you're listening to SewBro, where we talk and sew. Today, I'm joined by writer, poet, and model Naomi.
Hello, how's it going, everybody?
So, what came first, the writing, the poetry, or the modeling?
Definitely the poetry came first. I had honestly the first time I ever wrote a poem was when I was actually maybe like 12 or 13, one of the two, but yeah, it's I've been writing poetry for the longest time, but only this past year I've been able to like actually perform and be able to finally express my thoughts in a way.
Cool. That was around the time I started writing poetry too, was like 13. Just the right amount of angst and vocabulary that you could start shuffling your ideas around.
Right.
And performing, so what led you to perform recently? Did something happen, or did you just feel the need to finally share your work after all these years?
Um, I would say it's a mix of both. Because I mean, yes, something did happen a year. Well, yeah, last year I had went through a huge dark point in my life after all these things were going on in my personal life, such as getting out of a 4.5 year relationship and having to end a lot of friendships and just needing to be able to like find peace for myself again, find healing, and that was where poetry comes in again because I had used that to help cope with a lot of the like dark feelings I had during my mental health, I and then when I finally started performing earlier this year, I I wanted to be able to like not only express like the feelings I've had throughout the past year, but um, also I just finally be able to share what I have.
Nice. Yeah, friend and relationship drama is always primer for poetry. I performed my first poem in front of my 8th grade English class after a falling out with friends.
Mm.
And the response I got from that, I was like, as an introvert getting attention from a room for speaking, I was like, what is this feeling?
Right.
And even though I was terrified to read my poem, it felt good that I could say words that other people were made awkward by.
I mean, I like that though. Like, um, I mean, I mean, I know that's your experience. I can only imagine what that must have been like for you to be able to perform that after what must have happened with your friends at the time. So it must have been cathartic, I bet.
Yeah, and it's funny now because I've made up with all of those friends, and in a weird way, I'm grateful for it because that little friction, that angst, that frustration between friends led me to this hobby that I've met so many other friends through. So it was the result of feeling out of touch with a few friends, but through it, I've met so many more wonderful people over the years.
Absolutely. I know personally since I've been performing, I've made a lot of different friendships and different connections and excuse me. And honestly, I even though I would have never had pictured myself to be able to get up to perform or to get up to do anything creative at this point in my life, given everything I felt like I've gone through. I will say that I am grateful that I'm still able to make friends, still able to connect with people, still able to share art, and that really is meaningful.
So, as someone who isn't a model, what do you get out of modeling that you don't get out of poetry and writing?
Um, I would say that what I don't get from poetry that I get from modeling is that I can um, I can be able to look good in front of the camera without having to say anything. Um, and the reason I say that is because, well, I feel like with poetry, when I'm reading or writing it, I'm speaking about it. I'm talking about what I'm feeling, and just making sure I convey like whatever message I want to get across. And then with modeling, I'd say um, it helps me express myself differently through through action or through poses or however the shoot would go. And also, I like dressing up too, to be honest.
That I can relate to. I love dressing up, hence me constantly sewing silly outfits to tell different stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I empathize with that of how putting on an outfit and just standing and taking on people's gaze can give you that sense of fulfillment of like, I don't need to say anything to command presence.
Exactly.
I don't need to woo you over with an idea or a notion to get your attention.
Definitely.
So your writing, do you do any other writing aside from poetry?
Yes, I mean, I do journal. I do journal in my notebook. I wouldn't say I journal every day. I should make it a habit to be consistent with it every day, but I do like journaling about whatever is going on in my day or even just whatever is going on in my head. I'll just write down what I can. Or I guess I say, for example, I know when I journal again, I'm gonna bring up this podcast. So I could say or write down like, hey, it's been a minute, but today or yesterday, I somewhere along the line, I went on a podcast. It was really dope, and I got to talk about my poetry for the first time, and just stuff like that. But other than journaling, I have also written articles. I do have a blog. I I'm not I'm not active on it right now, but I have published different articles and different poems on there before.
Cool. I like journaling too because I'm freed from that like structure, that cadence of poetry or joke, and I can just get an idea out and then chisel away at it and see which way I want to take it.
Right.
So, who are some of your favorite poets and writers?
Mm. Um. I I can't say I have too many favorites, but I would say one that actually no, a couple of people that I thought of that I admire for the poetry. Maya Angelou is one person, and there's also an activist I follow on Instagram named Leah Juliet. They also have performed some good works as well. I admire them.
Maya Angelou was like one of the first poets I started to read because in high school we were reading classic poetry and we had to write response pieces to compete in this classic slam where you memorize the classic poem and write a response to it to get people to engage with the classic poetry and connect to it. And being an angsty, hopeless romantic, Maya Angelou was like, "What's this love you speak of?" So it was interesting connecting with someone from a different background and learning about affection and connection through their poetry when I was a high schooler who had no concept of either, really.
Right.
So, do you have a favorite model, like someone who was like, oh, I like the energy they carry or the charisma, or the barriers they're breaking down?
Hmm. Well, honestly, one model that I followed that I whose work I really enjoy. She actually happens to be one of my close friends. Her name's Fauna Nicole. I met her last year, um, and she was actually the one who inspired me to get into modeling because um, because when I had started following her work around the same time we became friends, I noticed that she had this sort of like confidence and this sort of like strong aura about her that she just carries naturally whenever she is modeling or singing. And I've seen her perform too. She's very lovely. Um and yeah, I would say that I really enjoy and admire how she carries herself as a model, and how like she just is just very down to earth. And I hope that like as I'm modeling now, I could bring that sort of joy and peace as well.
Interesting. I I can kind of see where you're coming from because the closest I can relate to is like cosplayers or eccentric artists when I see like just how they carry themselves quietly.
Mhm.
Because it's easy to do your own thing once you're on stage, but for like me and some other like artists, it's like what do we do when we're not doing the thing? How do we carry ourselves? And when I see an artist who just knows how to navigate the neurodivergency but in their own stylish way, I admire that.
Mhm.
So, this is a great time for us to cut to a quick commercial break. We'll be right back after a message from our sponsors. And we're back. So, we've talked about artists you like. Who are some artists you don't like? Models, writers, poets, just people who you think are giving off the wrong impression about something or you feel don't make the art form look as attractive and empowering as it could be.
Mm-mm. That's a good question, actually. I would say one artist that I don't like. Are you familiar with Melanie Martinez?
The model?
Actually, no. She's a singer and musician.
I'm not.
Okay. Uh, yeah. That was like That's one artist I don't particularly like. At least not anymore. But yeah, she's been in the industry since like 2014. I'd have to say. Well, I was listening to her in high school. I graduated 2017. Anyway, yeah, I was listening to her around that time, and even in college, and um, like her music is like whimsical. Sounds like uh, her music basically has like that whimsical vibe that makes it dark, but also somewhat childlike, if that's the best way to put it, without making it sound gross. So anyway, the reason I don't like her anymore is because she was accused of sexual assault like several years ago now, and um, to which the girl that came forward she comes out on social media again, maybe like 4 or 6 months ago now, and um, she recounts how after she had spoken out about her assault, that Melanie had so many of her fans scare her off the internet and just like take over her life, just because she spoke out against her, and that clearly had a lot of negative impact on her. Um, and personally, as somebody who has went through sexual assault myself, I began to really empathize with her pain and her frustration, and sadly, I don't even like sadly to admit that I didn't want to believe her at first, when she first came out about her story, because I didn't, well, for one, at that time, like, I didn't know what to believe. I thought maybe it could have been a rumor that maybe just went wrong or something like that. I just didn't want to think nothing of it. That's why I turned that away at first, and didn't side with the victim. But then after she came out again, as of recently, she has made it clear that she never lied about anything she said up to this point, and that she to this day continues to try to get her life back together, even after all that she has went through with so many of her fans attacking her. And given that, like, Melanie has hardly said anything having to do with what her victim has said about her, that not only that just puts a bad taste in my mouth, but also, like, it just makes me realize, okay, maybe she really isn't what she says she is. And um it's just very it just completely comes off the wrong way, especially again as someone who's survived sexual assault myself. It doesn't, like, it would feel weird to have to still be a part of a fan base, so to speak, for Melanie, who is clearly defending her in her wrongdoing.
Oof.
Yeah.
That's. I'm sorry you went through that. I'm sorry you're having that frustration with someone you admired. I can relate a bit as far as like an artist I admired who turned out to be a predator, and then wrestling with that of, hey, I thought we were all of the same mind,
Mm-hmm.
and you're doubting now everything this person said because of their harmful actions, and the good things they did say feels like lies to woo people over. Like, for me, it was the lead singer of Anti-Flag, Just Insane, who turned out to be a rapist when he was a teenager, raping other teenagers, and then it proceeded as into his adulthood. And coming from a defiantly leftist band, it was a bit like, oh, were you ever about the cause? Were you ever actually making music for us, or just to virtue signal so people would feel safer in your presence? And I think it needs to be called out more because, like, I feel like a lot of people run into that because eventually there's going to be an artist you like who does some stuff you don't like. And do you still listen to their music? How do you separate the art from the artist, or are the two intertwined?
I will say that excuse me. I will say that at first maybe there would be some way to be able to separate the art from the artist, as to where uh, because I mean, I'm sure like that this varies for whoever views the whole concept of separating art and the artist. But um, I guess, say if he wanted to obviously not associate with the artist as a person, then of course obviously you don't have to follow their social media. Like, obviously don't follow their social media or whatever they're talking about, um, or pay attention to anything they're doing, unless you want to still listen to their music just because like it brought you some sort of peace, um, or not even just peace, but it brought you like good moments before, good memories. But I will say that given like the current climate and how everything's been uh pretty backwards, especially as far as like politics and how it affects other people and people that create art. I will say that I think it is important to really consider like just to consider the just how much more significant it will be to not to have to not separate the artist and the artist, excuse me, the artist and the art, to not separate that, and by doing that, like, um, it's best not to even engage with their art, especially if they're not going to be authentic with what they care about in as a person.
Yeah, I think it's kind of impossible to, especially when I think for it's harder for like singers, poets, and comedians because so much of their art is their very thoughts. Where it's like, whereas a musician, it's like, oh, I love that sound they make with the guitar. But it's the sounds they make with their thinky and their brain that I don't like.
Yeah.
And I've run into that with like other like Allen Ginsberg wrote Howl, one of the greatest poems ever written. But Allen Ginsberg's a pedophile. So it's just that. And for me, like, I can't separate it. Like, I took Anti Flag off all my playlists, I took their patches off and stickers off my stuff. But. But it was also saying, like, I don't want to be associated with that. I don't want someone to be like, oh, I hope he's listening to them for the music. And especially coming from the punk scene where it's like, the fact that Justin Sane wasn't beaten senseless by a group of punks in a parking lot kind of feels like we're doing something wrong.
Right.
If we're talking about how rapists get dealt with in a punk scene, like, and I think that scrutiny needs to be there because I would hate that someone's like, oh, if I'm good enough at this, they will excuse that. Because I think there is plenty of that in entertainment and in other fields of you can be good enough for problematic behavior to be okay. And also with like the music stuff of so many times the songs by this asshole are now just chiming into my head because they helped me out during the teen years. So it's like a mix of like nostalgia and just where my brain's tapping into when I'm feeling certain emotions, but it's like, no,
Right.
I can't use that song any. So, what are your thoughts on everything that's been happening in Los Angeles recently?
Um, it's excuse me. Honestly, uh, it's really scary. There's really no better way to put it. It's scary. It's disheartening, appalling. Uh, even even me myself, I will say that I have been pretty worried about others around me, just for the fact that like the the ice raids going on are so close to home, um and it has gotten to a point where even my mom, who's out of town right now, she texted me and my dad, telling us that she heard about the raids and the protest, and that she hopes that we're safe, and she did worry that maybe my dad was gonna get swept up while he was out, especially with my older sister who is non-verbally autistic, um and yeah, even though I haven't really talked too much about how I personally feel about everything going on, I will say it it honestly just makes me really, really sad that the world has gotten to this point, and yeah, just the fact that it just continues to get worse, especially as long as Trump is president. Of course, uh, there's no way we're gonna escape that anytime soon. And so of course here come the ice raids, and yeah, there's just really no better way to even explain how I feel other than that.
Yeah, it's a lot, and I can't imagine what that sense of feeling targeted or worrying for your family is because of my privilege. Because I've never had to. I only know worrying about others, and that's one of the reasons I've been motivated to go out and protest and to do what I can. Because I've been organizing for 14 years, and that's where I feel like, oh, I may not be able to like truly understand it, but I know this is wrong, and I know there's things I can do to intervene and to make it harder. And it I I'm amazed I'm seeing as many people out in the city as I am, knowing that it's just racial profiling at this point. Like, it's not anything else. They're not going off of a list, and that's
Right.
part of the reason I think we're seeing this response across the city and across the country is that they people know of like, oh, the clock's ticking on. It's just who's next, when, for what excuse, and it's kind of the crescendo of all of the fear mongering, of all of the rhetoric building up to now. So, getting beyond our community, what are your thoughts on everything happening in the world? Because it wasn't just LA, there's all. Or is it hard to even think about the world beyond our community now because of what's happening?
Um. Well, I will. I will definitely say um that like with everything going on close to home and in the world, I will say that collect like altogether it does can get over it can get overwhelming because I mean, of course, what's going on in the world, like in Gaza, and how people here have protested, and um, only of course to end up having to deal with authority in some way, um, and being just the fact that that it feels like no matter like how many times we keep protesting, in which of course like we obviously have to keep going at it. There's also gonna be the oppressors on the other side who want us to stay silent, whether we're protesting for Gaza or protesting uh, for for all the immigrants here who or and just the community in general that have been affected by the ice raids in any way, shape, or form. I will say that's the most frustrating thing about everything going on. It's just the fact that yeah, just the fact that I can feel that, or at least for me personally, that it can get emotionally tiring having to constantly speak up for myself in that matter.
Yeah, it's I I've heard that from other people in the community and other non-white folks of just like the exhaust from fighting, having to fight and worry about your basic rights and liberties in the country all the time, and especially like with we're on like Trump version 2. It's like it's been 12 years. We just had that like gap in between so I hear that exhaustion, and I definitely, when you're talking about like just we have to keep protesting, like yeah, and it's I definitely feel disheartened at times because it's like, oh, I remember protesting stuff when Obama was president and we didn't get listened to. Now we're supposed to be listened to now, and that's and I have to like remind myself of no, 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 that once we get disheartened, that's when we start to collapse, and taking time to recharge, to do this rather than being out at every picket line and protest. And that's where I also think I've seen a wonderful mix of other community members with privilege being out there who are a little more secure in their situations because they know there's so many people who can't. And for me, like I watch a lot of international news because I like to know what's happening in the rest of the world. So when I meet people from those places who have family there, I can get a better sense of like empathy and understanding for what they're dealing with. But it's when stuff's happening in LA, like the fires or the ice raids, that I can't watch the international news because I'm so spent from watching the local news. And I've run into that lately where I'm like, wait, what's happening there? I used to be up to date, but what? Because you're so caught up with what's going on here, and your sense of worry is gravitating toward here rather than there.
Right.
So, this is a fun question I ask every guest of, if you had to flee the country, where would you go?
Oh, that's a really good question. Honestly, I've I have thought about Mexico, and I say this because I do have family there. I've visited before, um and honestly, I would say that if for any reason like I had no other options and the best bet was to flee to Mexico, then I would use that to um I would say mainly to improve more on my Spanish speaking, which is not great, obviously, but other than that, I would like to get to know more about the culture from my dad's side, um, and honestly see like more of what's out there in the world. Especially because I've lived in Los Angeles my whole life, and um, so I would say being like living in Mexico, it would help me learn a lot of different things out there.
I I feel you. I wanting to wanting to connect to your heritage a bit more, and it's and I was as you're saying that I'm thinking like for most of history Los Angeles has been, or for most of like the nation state history, Los Angeles was a part of Mexico, and it was indigenous land before that, and that's what I'm always thinking of like the line between LA being a part of what country is just what time frame, because in many ways I'd say LA as far as like culture is closer to Mexico than what they're doing in Washington DC. And like if I had to flee the country, I'd go to Ireland, somewhere like learn, connect with my heritage, language, and I think that's a especially as we're leaving this experiment in America, that reflection. of seeing like the remnants of our culture versus reconnecting with it. Because that's what I view a lot of America as is, oh, we're just the final fragments of identity from our ancestors. And because of what's happening in the world now, we get this crazy opportunity where other people in the world are looking back at their ancestry and going, what did we forget? What are we missing out on? What are we missing?
Right.
So another question kind of tied to this: if you had to choose your last meal, and I ask this because I'm like, for me, food is it's a drug, but it's not a drug.
Right.
Like, it can be so good you consume too much of it, but you don't. But it's not associated with like withdrawals or any stuff. So that's why I'm fascinated. Like, what would be that last bit of tongue joy that someone would want to try?
You know, I have thought about this before in a completely unrelated scenario, um, uh, but you know, I think I would have to say I would have to say scrambled eggs and spam musubi. I don't know if you've tried spam musubi before, but um, basically it's spam in the middle, and then there's rice covering it, and then it's wrapped in seaweed, and so that is spam musubi. So because I don't have it very often, and whenever I do, and it's usually with family, like it's like every now and then when I do have spam musubi, it's always just for me, it can never go wrong with spam, and of course, uh, I know some people don't like spam for one reason or another, which is fine. But for me, uh, yeah, I say spam musubi because it's just it's just one of my many favorite foods that I've enjoyed growing up, um, and like having that as the last meal, along with eggs, of course. It's like something simple, something nostalgic that I can enjoy one more time.
I like that. It sounds delicious. Haven't had it. I haven't had that specific dish, but scrambled eggs and any meat, I'm with you.
Right. I agree.
Like, that's one of those things where I'm embarrassed to admit, like, just scrambled eggs and anything, I'm with it. I the closest thing I have to that is I have scrambled eggs and rice a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and then I boil the rice water on the buttery egg pan so I can.
Ooh.
Yeah,
I like that.
but yes, I'm with you on that, and man, that the egg prices just messed me up. Like, that's where I was just like, come on, just can't catch a break.
Oh man.
So, what were your favorite cartoons growing up?
Ooh, I have a few. There's SpongeBob. Yeah, SpongeBob, Steven Universe. Um, there's also I would say as a smaller kid, Blue's Clues, and then um, but then like a while after that, I also really liked what's the one show called? I'm blanking out, but okay, I think I remember now. Okay, the other show I was gonna mention, well, for cartoons was um, yeah, it was called oh yeah, it was called Miraculous Ladybug. I mean, I haven't been keeping up with it lately because it's an ongoing cartoon, but for a while I liked the earlier seasons, and and it came out when I was in high school, so I would say that I really enjoyed Miraculous for a while growing up.
Nice. I've seen Steven Universe. I haven't heard of Miraculous. What was
Oh, Miraculous Ladybug.
Ladybug? I'll have to check that out.
You should, yeah.
I still will watch. I was watching Fairly Odd Parents last night.
Oh yeah, I love Fairly Odd Parents.
Yeah, I'm I'm still more of an animation fan than live action.
Me too.
And it's also like interesting cartoons as an adult, where it's like which cartoons from my childhood still hold up versus which ones don't.
Mm-hmm.
And then also like being able to appreciate like, and when I say like adult animation, I don't mean like pornographic, but like Gendy Tartakovsky's Primal, where it's grunts, growls, kind of gory, but heavy subject matter,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to appreciate like those narratives.
And wait, what is it called again?
The show is called Primal, and it's the creator from Samurai Jack and Dexter's Laboratory.
Oh, okay.
So it's the artwork's incredible, but it's like there's no English in the show. Like the only languages I have heard spoken are Irish and Arabic. The rest of the characters grunt, growl, and body language, and that's the fun of watching the show. You're mostly watching it because of the body language and the social cues.
Mm.
And he does such an incredible job of telling stories through that alone. And it makes you look at our shows where it's like, you had words and struck out. So, it's summertime. Do you have any big summer activities you're looking forward to?
Actually, yeah. In about 2 to 3 weeks, I'm going on a family trip to Maui, and I'm my partner's coming with me, and it'll be his first time in Hawaii, which I'm really excited for him about that because I visited Maui before for a couple summers, and it's really beautiful out there, especially during the summertime, and then with my partner coming along, of course it'll be our first trip together, and he'll be able to spend time with some of my family, and so I really I'm really looking forward to that. How about you?
I'm. Oh, that's cool. You're going to Hawaii. I have family out in Hawaii, and if I weren't so fair, I would enjoy it much more. But the universe works in strange ways and makes indoor cats out of the box. But next week. I'm gonna go to Northern California to see some family, drive, and nice to get away from a region where the National Guard and Marines aren't both deployed to.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to Anime Expo July 3rd through 6th. So, gonna be in my Hokage cosplay, doing some podcast shenanigans out there, interviewing people, and feeding my ego. And Anime Expo falls on July 4th, and with everything happening in the country, I think there is a great chance I'm going to show up to a protest in cosplay, which...
That would be sick.
But other than that, like, just more of this, more art making, prepping for hopefully a bigger trip in September, but I don't look forward to the summer. Like, though, I worked at a place and there was one other like Irish Scottish dude who was like lightning pale and redhead, and as summer came around I was like, you're ready to hide? And he was like, yep. People was like, why are you two wearing long sleeves? It's so hot. And it's just like, we're either ghastly pale or lobster red. And that's the thing, is like, I want to enjoy summer, I want to go out more, but I gotta be very careful.
I get it. That's totally fair.
And my tattoos are a great excuse to be like, I guess I would hate to damage the artwork.
Right.
But I am hoping to like do a little more skating, because I wanted to skate in the fall, but it was like raining, and I was like, I'm not good at skating, but it's fun.
As long as you're having fun.
That's what I try to. That's what I tell people when I'm bombing doing stand up, but they don't believe me. Like, no. You see, it was going horrible, but it was fun. All right, so where can people find you if they want to see your modeling or hear your poetry?
Oh, well, for anybody watching, you can find me on Instagram. I go by Sparkle Writes. That is SparkleWritess, and normally I'll post anything to do with modeling shoots or poetry slams, open mics, and usually I'll be posting there, and of course where you can also see this podcast coming up, which I'm very happy you got me on. Thank you.
Cool. You heard it from them. I'm Shane Kenny. Shane Kenny Comedy on all social media. You've been listening to SewBro. Slán.